So we'll see. So yeah, I just put I had it not checked on. So yeah, so we're using this little system here, and sometimes things are checked, the boxes are checked, other times the boxes aren't checked. So if you're just tuning in, I was talking about the video that's coming up about triggers being an opportunity for us to learn more about ourselves and how we can actually turn that around from being a defensive situation to a learning situation. So I really actually am pretty happy with that content, and I'd like to try to find new ways of connecting with things and finding opportunities and things that usually doesn't have an opportunity, to be quite honest with you, because some of this stuff just sucks, you know? It's not like we're like, woohoo, I got triggered. This is great. You know, so happy I was triggered. Woohoo. No, nobody in the world is saying that. But, maybe after you watch the video that I put out either this weekend or on Monday, maybe you might be thinking, hey, I'm glad I got triggered because I can use this as an opportunity. I know that it's funny, but it's true. It's like anything that we can use as an opportunity for growth to learn about ourselves. You know what I mean? Because really, every relationship, and I'm not trying to make it like some sort of narcissistic talk, but what I'm saying is that every relationship we're in, every conversation we have, everything actually teaches us more about ourselves, right? Because it's about how we're dealing with things or how we feel about things or how we connect with things. Rebecca, it's great to see you. How are you doing? Thank you, beautiful lady. I'm glad that you are here as well. So thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you. It's been a great week so far. Lots of great sessions, lots of great clarity and understanding, and um, some real breakthroughs. So that's been good. We're working on some other stuff here too. I'm working on another master class that I'm really happy. It's already done, but we have not loaded it yet or done anything with it, but we will soon. So we've been kind of sitting on it. We've been sitting on it over here, but we will eventually do something with it, i.e., put it up. So we'll eventually do that. Faint signals from Vega. Great to see you. How are you doing? Denise, how are you doing? Great to have you. Hey, from Alabama. Great to see you from Alabama. That's great. And we're glad to have y'all here. So, any questions that you have? I know it's we're kind of in a rare time, kind of in the middle of the hour, and I have some sessions after this that I have to attend to. But I wanted to get in and connect with y'all because it's so important to connect, and I think that we have a great connection here and a great community here. And I think that's what's necessary. So it's like let's connect and let's keep the dialogue going because we learn so much, right? By connecting with others. We learn so much by listening to even just contemplating other people's questions and stuff in their life, right? Because a lot of times we can feel like we're alone, right? We can feel like we're alone in our life. We can feel like we're the only ones dealing with a situation, and that's just not true. But the way that some of society is set up, it feels like it's true. Like we feel like we're alone. And thank God we have the internet, we have YouTube, which is amazing, and all kinds of other different websites that we can go to get some answers to some questions that we need. But all in all, a lot of times we do feel like we're alone sometimes, especially in a situation when we feel like it's overwhelming or it's very stressful or it's extremely emotional. We can feel that way. And so, that's something that we want to connect with. Faint signals from Vega. Why are families and extended families often so dysfunctional? That's a great question. Honestly, I it's funny, and I don't know if it's funny, haha, but it's interesting how a lot of families are really dysfunctional. And I haven't really seen a family that has no dysfunction. And I think that's because, I think that there's so many. It's interesting because you have so many options, so much potential for various situations. But I think because cycles perpetuate, I think the perpetuation of certain toxic cycles. I think the perpetuation of the perceived negative connotation of getting help in our society. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's part of it too, right? Like we there's that feeling that we shouldn't, or there's that kind of that underlying concept that we shouldn't be getting help or that getting help is not a good thing. And I think that that still exists too. And so we don't have a place to talk about our issues. And I don't think that that so much exists in certain places, but I do think that it does exist in a lot of different places around our world. and in a lot of households, right? So even if the community is embracing getting help and being able to communicate your thoughts and being able to connect with your emotions, some of us live in family dynamics or have families that they make fun of it, right? Oh, our family doesn't get help, or our family doesn't talk to anybody, or we don't talk about our dirty laundry and that sort of thing. And so I think that that's why I think that it's years and it's generations upon generations of situations. And I think the generations upon generations of situations and dysfunction has created that. And then we become products to some degree of our environment and the people that raise us. And then we do the best we can to pull ourselves out of those situations, to get to know ourselves, to be able to educate ourselves, to do the work, to connect with our core wounds, to connect with our core beliefs, to, eradicate the things that no longer work by really working to connect the brain and the heart and all of those things. So that's a really good question because I haven't seen yet. I mean, I've seen people that have less dysfunction, right? But there's still that dysfunction, and it's interesting because sometimes we don't even see it because it's normalized, right? It's a normalized situation because it becomes normal to us because we've been around it for so long, right? And I was talking about that earlier today with someone. Is that we were talking about the normalization? I said, if you've ever if you've always been able to talk about your emotions and you've always been able to connect with your emotions with your family, you would not enter into a relationship down the road where your emotions and your feelings were made fun of because it just wouldn't be accepted. Like the moment that somebody made fun of your emotions or squashed them or called you a baby for speaking up would be the moment that you would say, "Hey, yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on here, but this is not this goes against everything that I've ever learned and taught and been around. So I'm gonna I'm gonna say goodbye." But see, we don't do that because it's been normalized. We've been used to certain things like that. And so we get into a relationship where somebody doesn't care about our emotions, where somebody makes fun of our emotions, where somebody won't allow us to have emotions. And it's interesting because we don't really see that we came from that as a family dynamic, but it was normalized. And so I think that's an interesting side. Good question. I appreciate the question. Zen and me, thank you for tuning in. One, Bren, everyone has their own interpretation of dysfunction. A lot of it is what type of dysfunction were you born into that has now become your norm. Okay, there you go. I mean, that speaks to, yeah, normalization of what the dysfunction is. And yeah, the comfort zone that's so uncomfortable, right? It's the comfort zone that we it's the thing that we connect with, but yet it's that uncomfortability. It's the perfect storm, right? It's the thing that we still have to deal with, and then we find someone that we play it out with in another relationship. Faint signals from Vega. Thank you. Good answer, Ashley. I appreciate it. Appreciate that. It seems like the ones who should be doing therapy are the last ones to have therapy. And that's true. I mean, a lot of times, yes, the person that doesn't feel like they need any help, or the person that makes fun of the help. And a lot of times, the person that makes light of the help and no, this doesn't work and that'll never work and going to them is horrible and you're just wasting your money. Those are the people that probably are the most fearful of their loved ones talking to somebody because they don't want to be talked about. They don't want to be talked about. And I think that that's an interesting scenario. I think that's an interesting scenario because, but then they don't want anybody else to get help, right? They don't want anybody else to get help. They don't want to be talked about, but yet they don't want anybody else to get help because if people get help and they get understanding and they get support, well, they might not be around. Rebecca, my ex narcissist proposed by PowerPoint. He called me pretty but not beautiful and pervaded me by threatening divorce if I voted for my president of my choice. I'm recovering after 4 years. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot, but not beautiful. Threatening divorce if you voted for the person that you wanted for president. I'm glad that you're recovering after 4 years. That's tough, and I'm glad you are with us on today in this community, and we're here. We try to be here. I'll be here definitely next week as well. The following week, I will not be here. I'll be at a funeral ceremony for for actually my father-in-law. So I will be up there. Like COVID was a very interesting thing, right? It kept us from doing the celebrations in life and that sort of thing that we probably should have been doing at the time that it happened. But Rebecca, I'm glad that you are recovering. That is good, and I'm glad that you're out of that relationship because that was not a solid relationship as far as that was not a healthy relationship, and I'm glad that you were able to let that go. Congratulations. Seriously, that was a good work on your part. Um, let's see. Zen and me just joining. Hope this question is on topic. If father was narcissistic and sister 8 years older than me is narcissistic, how do I know if I'm also one too? Because that behavior is all I knew. That's interesting. Good question. Mm. Well, yeah, I mean, we all have tendencies, right? Everybody's somewhere, I think, on the spectrum. Some of us have maybe a sign of maybe we one thing, maybe we have a sign of histrionic, maybe we have one little sign or symptom of NPD or whatever, or maybe we have, maybe we have a fear of abandonment, BPD, whatever it is. We all have little signs and symptoms, but we're all kind of there can be gray areas there. But I think sometimes too, things can go multiple ways. So you could be raised around that and you can wonder, okay, maybe I'm narcissistic, or maybe a lot of times too in an environment like that, we could become more codependent, right? Because we're trying to take care of things, we're trying to do the right thing, we're trying to get people to like us, we're trying to be accepted, we're trying to get mom and we're trying to get or dad or our sister to like us or to be a part of it. So maybe we acquiesce a lot, right? We acquiesce and we accept that. We overlook their issues. And I think one of the best things to do is if you can, step back and look at yourself. Do I have some of these tendencies? If you look, just down some of the tendencies for MPD and really look at that. But I think it would behoove you to maybe even look at some of the tendencies of codependency and really look at what codependency is like as well. And I'm not saying or diagnosing or anything like that, but I am saying that sometimes in environments like that, we go the opposite way because of survival or because of acceptance. And then sometimes we can take on some of those traits, and then sometimes we could actually be so affected the other way that just being around somebody with narcissistic tendencies triggers us so much in such an adverse way. It can also almost be debilitating, right? It can be debilitating. It can be almost stop us in our tracks because of the pain that we've suffered growing up. Faint signals from Vega. Every family is like its own universe. It certainly is. Um, let's see. My ex and I chose not to be with you. Can you explain for me a little more detail? She has BPD, MPD traits. It's been an on and off couple for years. Thank you. Okay, so she chose not to be with you. Can you explain for me a little more detail? So she chose not to be with you. Is there a reason? Give me some more information. Did she choose? Did she break up the relationship? Um, is she avoiding being in a relationship? Is she fearful that you're gonna leave the relationship? Those are some questions. And how long have y'all been together? Faint signals for Vega have had several years of therapy, but none of my family or extended family have had their therapy. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you, Faint Signals for Vega. Vega, I appreciate that. Yeah, so everything's going well. It's kind of sad because he was very close, and then we weren't able to have when it happened, we weren't able to do anything, which I thought was kind of sad. So, but we'll have that ceremony and the celebration of life here in a few weeks. So I'll let y'all know how it goes for sure. Um, Zen and me, I'm definitely an empath, and yes, codependent. Just freaks me out to think I have some traits, and all of us have some traits. I mean, I don't think we can ever be in a vacuum, right? We can't ever be in a vacuum. But at the same point in time, we can take on some of the things. But sometimes the narcissistic traits, maybe that we've taken on is to safeguard ourselves to some degree. To safeguard yourself, to try to have, to try to limit the empathy, to try to have that disconnect. But I do think that the codependency is something that I would look at because, especially if you're an empath, that's a real telltale sign, being empathic. Because if you can be empathic, it's very hard to have narcissistic traits when you're an empath. And I think anybody that's watching right now and is here on this communication thread knows that when you're an empath, you feel for other people. Sometimes we feel other people's pain. We can definitely feel what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. We're not making a lot of judgment calls on people. We have a tendency of seeing, obviously, the good side in situations, and we try to help people as much as possible. And a lot of times in those situations of being an empath, you can get hurt at the same point because you're giving so much of yourself also you can be hurt because the other person might not have any empathy as well. Um, has narcissism always been prolific, or is it just that it's being highlighted now, Ashley? That's a great question. I think it's always been around. I really think, honestly, the numbers of narcissists is actually extremely high. I think that the numbers in all these books and all these documents are really low. I think narcissism has always been around. I think there. I think. I mean, if you look at it, a lot of times I think it's been called different things, like in charge or the boss, or they really knew what they wanted, various things that, if you think about it, it was classified as being a go-getter. It was classified as, a no nonsense person, a no nonsense man, all these different things. I think if you start looking at the classifications and how people would talk about, situations in the past, back in the day, I think you begin to realize that I think we just didn't define it as narcissism, right? Because we didn't see it as something, we didn't see it as that. Nobody talked about it. It was like the untalked about, unspoken situation. And there's a lot of different communities in general that a lot of women, and I'm not going to go into country by country, but a lot of the men are more narcissistic and nobody really talks about it. And so, and women for that matter, but then if you look at the narcissistic component, if you look at the antisocial, sociopathic component, I think really honestly, this has been going on forever. Um, and I just think that now we finally have the terminology and we actually have enough of the technology to start talking about it in groups and start bringing it to light. I think before that, we haven't been able to. And I also think that a lot of people that are in certain positions in life actually do have tendencies of having narcissism. And so it's something that maybe some folks don't want to talk about, to be quite honest with you, being their position that they have in life. And people call that sometimes type A personalities. There's various, think about the different things that people talk about and how they define things as go getters or type A. And I'm not saying this is all, type A is always going to be narcissistic, but, they know what they want. They go after what they want, those types of things. And that can be good in certain things, but it just depends on how far are we going to get what we want. Are we stepping over everybody to get it? Do we have absolutely no empathy for the other person? Does their care or their life mean anything, or does my life trump all other people's lives, right? And so that's always an interesting dynamic. I am a mom of a very passive aggressive 42-year-old son. I am tired of hoping and trying to have a relationship. I never even met my 9 and 6-year-old grandkids until this year. That is really challenging, and I hate that. I hate that that's happened to you. I'm glad that you've met them. But yeah, passive aggressive and dealing with someone that's controlling the situation like that is so unfortunate and so unhealthy. Their idea of controlling the fact that you can't see the grandkids. I'm glad that you're here with us, by the way. We can be your support system. I hope that things change, but hopefully you'll get to see the grandkids more. And I know that that's painful. The process itself, though, is that, yeah, the passive aggression, the anger, the resentment that they have, and also the power play that they hold because that the grandkids are so important. K Clock, we are all told to avoid cognitive distortions, including black and white thinking, but I feel like everyone is being labeled either a narcissist or an empath, black and white thinking. And and I appreciate that comment too. I think that there's areas of gray, right? I think that we can be empathic. I think that we can have some tendencies. And I don't want to label everybody as a narcissist or this or that, but I do think that we have to look at tendencies sometimes. We have to look at our tendencies. I think that there are, though, a lot of people out there that do have kind of codependency and empathy, kind of, and empaths, kind of hand in hand, and I do see that together a lot. But yeah, I don't want to title everybody. And I agree with you. I don't like to talk about that type of thing. I like to talk about symptoms and signs. I like to talk about attachment styles more than I like to label. And I appreciate your point. NJMP, how are you doing? Great to see you. Let's see. Exalca, you're gonna have to help me say your name, and I apologize. I don't mean to butcher it, but I'm trying to phonetically say it. Why do some people only attract selfish people? And that's interesting. Sometimes we can attract selfish people because we give until it hurts. We have a tendency of attracting those types of people because we feel like we have to give till it hurts, or we feel like we have to keep giving of ourselves because that's what we have to do to keep somebody around. And so sometimes in that situation, we're not attracting the healthy people because we don't feel good enough we don't feel solid enough to be able to stand up to those people, right? We feel like we have to give them something. And if you've been around that environment before of selfish people or people that want something from you constantly, or someone that's, using that, I think that that attraction is a perfect storm, because when we get attached to those types of people or attract those types of people, that means that we have something directly within us that's attracting them. So they probably find, if they're attracted to you, that they can take advantage of you, and then you are allowing them to also take advantage of you, vice versa, because of probably feeling that you need to give and help this person no matter what. And so I think that's where the perfect storm comes in. Faint signals from Vega. I'm glad to hear this answer, because it would be scary to think that narcissism has become in recent times prolific. Great, and I think it's been with us for so long. Zen and me, thank you so much. Thank you very much for your help. I appreciate you. Thank you. Do you know what percentage? I appreciate that, by the way, Zen and me. Thank you. Do you know what percentage are women and what percentage are men who are narcissists? And that's a big question. What percentage? And I don't know, because there's so much information out there that I think is misleading. I think it's supposedly a small percent. I mean, like, I just don't agree. I don't think that it's as small as a percent as they will tell you. And also, it depends on, the gray areas of narcissism. And I think, um okay, so they're saying back in 2020, Cleveland Clinic, that up to 5% of people have MPD. I would have to say there's a lot more. I don't think it's 5%. Um, and then it says the estimated this MPD is present in 0.5% of the general U.S. population, and in 2 to 16% of those who seek help. I don't know about that. I really think I really think, if you look at it, there's a lot of folks that that probably have narcissistic tendencies. I bet you even have some family members that that have some narcissistic tendencies, maybe a boss. I mean, I think if you really start looking at it, and I'm not saying that we want to label people, but when you really start looking at tendencies and signs of people, this is very common. This is a very common thing, and these traits are very common. And so I would have to say it's way more than that. And I just don't think that we really have the right percentage. I wish. I mean, sometimes you feel like it's a third of society, right? But, that's probably too much. But it feels like a lot. It feels like a lot. That's a good question. Joel, how do I deal with narcissistic parents um, who openly favor an older sibling, both emotionally and financially, and always making excuses for them? Wow. Yes, one of the tendencies of having a parent that's full blown MPD is the fact that they're going to favor somebody, and one of the siblings is going to be the favorite. I've done some videos on that, the favorite, that sort of thing, the golden child, and it's hard. Joel, you know what? Quite honestly, it's hard, because no matter what you do, a lot of times they don't see it. They've already found their favorite, and it feels like you're kind of running uphill, right? To prove some value. And it seems like you can never prove that value. There's got to be some emotional disconnect. And what I work with clients in this situation is we work on emotional neutrality. Okay, so it's one thing. Think about it. When we're kids, we love that our parents think we're great, right? Oh my gosh, they think we're great. It means so much, and we take it in as our self-esteem, our self-worth. But then when they tell us, that we're stupid or whatever like that, it hurts our feelings to the core, right? So we have to create this emotional neutrality, and it works because you start disconnecting, and there's a whole process of it, but you start disconnecting emotionally. And I hate to say that it is your parents, but it's got to hurt to have a sibling that's always the favorite. It's got to hurt to have a sibling that always gets what you don't get, that always, that's always smart, that's always the one that they talk about, that they quote. And so that's something that you might want to think about, is trying to get some distance emotionally from them, what they say positive, what they say negative, and try to neutralize that. I also think some distancing too, and also working on our expectations. Do we ever expect to be at that level? Do we ever think that they're going to change? Have they ever changed? Have they ever shown us that they can change? Have they ever shown us that they will be able to see us as an equal to the other child? That's a great question. Sean, thank you for sharing your thought and knowledge. I also find it very informative and very healing. Thank you, Sean, so much for reaching out. That means the world to me. I do appreciate you. K Clock, good news. I am 11 months out from my divorce from a narcissistic spouse, and I am 6 weeks into a very sweet new relationship. She and I are very, hold on one second. She and I are very open about feelings and invested in honesty. Great. I'm proud of that. That's great. Great news. That is great news. When you're able to talk about your emotions and communicate and be honest, that is powerful stuff. So, congratulations. If y'all can hear a little buddy in the background, he's whining. He's going to come on camera here in a second because I have to jump into session in a few minutes. I'm going to text my client real quick. I'm running a couple minutes late. Yeah, I know. Gotta do it. I'm sure that they're very understanding. Hope so. I'm just kidding. Fate signals from Vega. My mom was never able to hold on to the love shown here. Oh, by the way, real quick, K Clock, I'm proud of you. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Keep working. Keep connecting. It's always powerful to be in a relationship like that. Fate signals from Vega. My mom was never able to hold on to the love shown her. She needed to be told it and shown it regularly. She was like a cup with a hole in it. I don't know why. Yeah, and the reason why is because she can't fill up her own cup. She can't give her own self-love. She doesn't love herself. She doesn't unconditionally love herself. She doesn't probably even like herself. So even if you give her all the love and support, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the problem. I mean, it just doesn't matter because you can't fill her up with what she has to fill herself up. We can't get love from other people and use that as our personal love for ourselves. We can love ourselves unconditionally, and that's something that we have to get to because we have to accept ourselves. We have to get over our core wounds, our core beliefs, letting go of the things that no longer serve us. A lot of work. But once we get there, and it's really, I think it's the purpose. I think the whole idea of finding unconditional self-love is our only purpose. Which I think is very powerful. But yet she couldn't do it herself. And so unfortunately, no matter how much love you gave her, doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, unfortunately. And I wish it did, but it's like, you're right. It just was never going to be enough. Never enough. Okay, Zykols, is everyone that enables a BPD relationship to continue after emotional verbal abuse a codependent? Sorry for English. Thanks, Ashley. No worries. Don't worry. I totally get it. You know, not always, but most of the time. But also it's someone that's connected with that type of emotional or verbal abuse or accepted it before or been around it. Really, that's the key. That's the key. Yes, and so I think that's the connection is that if you've been around or emotional or verbal abuse in the past or accepted it or been brought up around it or had family that was doing it, that's the connection. And so we're used to it. It's the normalization of what we're used to. And so we've dealt with it before. And so we accept it again. See, if the emotional and verbal abuse was not normal to you, you would never accept it. The very first time out of the bag, you'd be like, yeah, hey, sayonara, it's really great hanging out with you. I gotta go. Right. But since we're used to it to some degree, so it might not be someone that totally has codependent tendencies, but it could be someone who's been exposed to this, but there's a high chance of maybe having some codependent symptoms and signs as well. Here, buddy, come here. Come here. Like a bowling ball. Oh, he's like a bowling ball. Okay, buddy's a little heavy, but he's a good boy. Okay, hi. Hi. You want to talk? Okay. Here's Buddy. He's doing good. He has a little limp though. Poor little thing. So I'm working on it. He's limping a little bit. So I went and did an X-ray on him, and he's got some arthritis and what have you. So we're working on coming up with a protocol to get him better. And then he's been coming to the office in the studio every day. And he likes it, but he's been up here since 9 a.m. So he's like, where's my dinner? So, yeah, exactly. Wendy, let's see. Okay. It's a good answer, Ashley. Thank you. Oh, yes, can we see Buddy? Perfect. Wendy, I appreciate that. Wendy, my situation is extremely hard. My daughter is 16, has BPD. They will not give her that diagnosis, and medical will not treat BPD. I'm having a hard time trying to keep her safe from herself. That's a challenge, sweetheart. And I wish you the best of luck on that, because I know that you're trying really hard to make sure that she's okay, to get her some help. So really work with cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT. The thing is that if we can catch it fast enough on these situations, we can work to really help them to become more mindful, to focus on on being able to focus on how do we catch the tendencies, how do we catch the programming, because I believe that's what it is. And my heart is with you. It is extremely hard. You're doing the right thing, championing for her, because when we catch it early, we can work through it. It can be a life changing situation, and unfortunately, most people don't have parents like that to try to help. So, Wendy, just we applaud you for all the work that you're doing. Abby, adorable. Wendy, cake clock, buddy. Cake clock, those beautiful eyes. Oh, yes, he's got great eyes, doesn't he? Trish, lol. Wendy, your videos have helped me. Thank you so much. I am so glad that they have connected with you. And we're going to be putting out new videos and more videos here. And if you have a question, if any of y'all have questions that y'all like me to answer separately, you can go to ashleyburgess.com. Just click on that contact page and you can send me an email and I can answer privately. I know that some folks have done that in the past because they don't really want to put it on here. But, I think that we're a family and, everybody's here to help each other, and everybody's here just to get the information and knowledge and be able to connect with folks that are going through the same thing or have been through it. But yeah, so I have probably about another time to answer one more question, and then I'm going to have to jump in the session. So I let them know that I was going to be about 10 minutes late. So that's all good. Hi. Yes, I do love you. He is a sweetheart. Yes. Oh yeah, the CBD treats. Actually, I'm looking for some good CBD treats for Buddy. I had a friend of mine that was doing CBD in Colorado, and we had some of that, and now we're looking for some good CBD joint treats for Buddy. So that should be something that we're looking for. He's feeling a little better today and yesterday. Still the limping, so definitely looking for that. But in the meantime, I'm just so glad that y'all tuned in. We're going to be doing this next Thursday, and we've actually scheduled a whole hour next Thursday, because I know that we're going to go up to about 40 minutes today, but we're going to schedule a whole hour for next Thursday. And it's about connecting here and understanding, because none of this stuff needs to be questionable. No, we don't have to question our reality. And the issue that's been so long is that a lot of stuff we deal with it, but we don't have anybody to talk to. We don't have anybody to communicate with. We don't have anybody to connect with. We don't have a sounding board. We don't have a group of people that are going through it and dealing with it. And that's what's so important, is that I think this is what this kind of allows, is that we can ask the questions, we can talk about things, and then we can also connect with one another. And that's what I think is powerful. It's like, we don't need any more mystery. We just need answers. And that's what I think is so important. Everybody be safe. Kate Clock, thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. Okay, last question. Just to follow up to my last, why do you think my mother did not have any self-love? I don't think that it's something that anybody really talked about. When you look at family dynamics, and we've talked about some of the issues with the family overall, I really think that most of us were never taught about self-love. My parents didn't talk about self-love. My parents didn't really talk about self-worth or self-value. And I think that that's important. And I think that probably her growing up, if we were to go back and talk about and excavate her mother and her father and really look at the dynamic, if she had a mom and dad, look at that dynamic and see how she was raised, I think we would get into that process that she didn't even know that that was probably something she needed. And then sometimes people really do self-loathe. And very unhappy and very unhappy with themselves and very judgmental of themselves. And that can turn to being a very judgmental parent as well. And so there's different levels of that. But I feel that a lot of people in society today don't have the ability. They haven't figured out how to love themselves. They haven't figured out how to care about themselves and give to themselves what they need. And I find that sad, because we're dealing with that situation on a large scale. And we could go into a lot of that, faint signals from Vega and really connect with that. And I think that would be powerful. But it's like if we look at the dynamic between her family dynamic and what she was raised around, I think we could find a lot of answers. And I bet if we go back to her parents, we could also see that there's some tendencies there as well. And then there could also be some attachment style issues too that we could actually excavate. Rhonda, great to see you. Thank you for connecting in. Yes, I'm going to check out some of those supplements for sure. Good idea, by the way. Abby, appreciate you as always, Ashley. I appreciate you, Abby. Rockmon, blessings to you. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Rockmon. Wendy, thank you so much. Glad that you tuned in. Faint signals from Vega. Keep safe. Let's all of us keep safe from COVID, keep safe from illness, try to keep ourselves healthy. Caleb, thank you so much for tuning in. Great to see you. Thank you. Faint signals from Vega. Y'all have a great night. Sean, thank you so much for tuning in. Y'all have a great night. We will be back on Thursday at 6 o'clock Central, if that works for everybody, 7 o'clock Eastern, and that'll be coming up this next week coming up. Zen and me, thank you for tuning in. Chef, your content has helped me so much. I really appreciate you tuning in. Zen and me take much care of you. Blessings to join your live. Glad that you're here, by the way. Maria, thank you so much for tuning in as well. Y'all and everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Wendy, thank you so much. We'll be back here next Thursday. And I look forward to seeing y'all and any questions, and we'll do a whole hour show for sure next week. K-Clock, we're proud of you too. Good work, K-Clock. Love you y'all. Y'all take care. Love you y'all. Have a good night. Bye-bye.